Hey, what's up, dudes? Okay, late start, but here we are. We're gonna do the work. I took care of some business today, not like big business, but something important to me that hopefully comes to pass. That wasn't like a waste of time and stuff, so I guess we'll find out in time whether or not this was a waste of time or whatever. This camera is a little... Is that better? Yeah, that's a little better. Alright, so let's see if if we're live. There it is. Ooh, somebody's been looking at rings. Somebody. You never know why stuff like that shows up, honestly. Okay, so get lens. We don't want to look at that. All right, devlog. Yesterday we continued finalizing save logic pies save load logic part 2. We continue going through the save logic master save object list, determining final form of namespaces for object names, and also including final pass pseudocode comments for proper save load logic for each data point. Create a reconnect bool for proper setter functionality upon reconnecting loading from database. We stopped at line 51 in save logic, then we staged our changes and stuff. So 51 in save logic. So let's go over there. Okay, so let's hop over. So we stopped here. We need to revisit previous entries in this list if they are properties with setters to add in the new reconnect bool logic to ensure proper functionality upon load reconnect. Okay, so revisit properties, but we'll just like put a note here. Pick back up here after property setter review for... The fuck is it? For reconnectable implementation. Alright. And that would be the below line. Okay. So we're going to go back up here and look through each one of these real quick and see if any of these are properties, calculated properties. No, no, no. No, none of those are. That's not. That's not. That's not. No, no, no. Okay, so choose multiple cards is. So this one we might need to add in code for this, right? For, yeah, into the setter. Yeah. So what we're gonna do is, this is, we're just gonna be in the game file. Gotta find it. Where is it, dude? Where that shit is, bruh? Okay. It is right here. No. Here we go. Okay, so choose multiple cards is a property. It is in game. The other one that we worked on is also in game for click card active. So that means we have already imported reconnect bool to this file, and what we need to do is just do the same thing that we did with the other property, and basically that is to add into the setter at the very beginning an overarching if else, and we want to say if reconnect bool dot reconnect bool is equal to false, because that's the more common, right? Because it's more common that you're not reconnecting. So if reconnect bool.reconnect bool is equal to false, that means operates normally since not reconnect, not a reconnect. Okay, and then we would add everything into the if here, like that. Boom. Okay, and then at the end we're just gonna say else, which is the same as saying elif reconnect bool dot reconnect bool is equal to true. Means reconnect avoids auxiliary functionality and data transfer. Yeah, we don't need to say anything else. It's self-explanatory. So in the case that we are reconnecting, then the only thing that we want to do is the only thing that we want to do is set self under choose multiple cards equal to val, right? Because everything else is just extra. We're just setting for the sake of getting through the getter. So like I think that's a good way to do it. So we'll just say self under choose multiple cards equal val, and that will cause it to, whenever we reconnect, it will only set that value, and it won't do any of this other stuff. It won't. Let's just go line by line here and make sure that it's correct. So first off, in the choose multiple cards setter, we have the def line. Then the first thing that happens is if reconnect bool dot reconnect bool is equal to false. It means operate normally since not a reconnect. That's good. It does checks SSCS for SS. It acquires the lock. But we're CS anyway, it doesn't matter. It defines this core func, blah blah blah. It runs the core func. The core func does data transfer. It sets the internal. It does some auxiliary functions stuff, some magic, and that's basically what we're avoiding: the data transfer and the magic. And then we go down here to blah blah, releases the lock, and then we have the else here, which is on the correct line. That's how you let the build the beat build right there. So if and then else, it's in the right spot. We just do self under choose multiple cards val. So that's all we need to do. That looks good to me. So let's go ahead and move forward. We will go to the next thing. Okay, so that's all we needed to do. Boom, that was easy, right? So now we go back over here. Oh yeah, this one's good too. Crank it up and go. This is stupid. Don't ever download fucking driver booster, alright? Just trust me, dude. So what are we doing here? Current game and choose multiple cards. Yeah, we did that. That's one we just did. Alright, then we did click card active, and yeah, so I'm thinking, making sure we did everything that we needed to do, because we're doing two things. We're adding in the code for reconnect bool, but we're also making sure that we're like recording the logic for a proper load and save. So this one would just be saved normally and loaded directly. It's just a boolean, so we don't have to like turn it into any other intermediate data type to save it or load it. Click card active, that's the same thing. That's a boolean. and we already added in the reconnect bool code associated with this one. At least I think we did. I want to check though. Let's just make sure. So let's go to click card active. Let's just check that out real quick. We're gonna go to game, and let's see here. Yeah, so we added the if reconnect bool is equal to false, and then the else, and then we just do self click card active dunder equals val. Easy. Yeah. Okay, cool. Alright, so back over here. So we're done with that one. The next one is going to be enter continue text active. Oh, right. I'm forgetting the namespace, right? Because the way that we're doing this is we're going to save. Well, we're going to put the associated instance, or like whatever the proper object is, in the prefix of the object name, you know, because we need to know that. So like we need to add it. So that's why we have game dot and then current game dot. So this one would be probably current game dot, because this one is a property. It's a class. Well, that always confuses me because the indentation level is actually at the class level. Like, you don't put properties or methods at the instance level, you put them at the class level. Does that make sense? But like, they're not really, well, I guess they could be class methods, yeah, right? But they take in self, and I thought like class methods don't take in self. There's always some basic shit I get hung up on, right? I should know this already. Let's see. So what I'm talking about here, see this indentation level, and then they have class game. So the definition is at the indentation level of the init, which everything in the init contains all things associated with the instance, right? Let me just ask Chibbity to clarify this for me. So Python, since methods and calculated properties are written at the class indentation level, not inside the init indent where instance adders are defined, are these methods properties considered class or instance objects? This touches on a subtle but important distinction in Python's object model. The short answer is methods and properties defined at the class. Methods and properties defined at the class indentation level are stored on the class, but when accessed through an instance, they behave like instance objects. Where they're stored, when you define a method or property at the class level, so you have class, my class, def, my method, and then at property, def, my prop. Both my method and my prop are stored in the class's namespace in the my class dict, thunderdict, not in the instance, my instance thunderdict. That's why they are class attributes. So methods and properties are actually considered class attributes. properties are special types of attributes. And I always, like, it's, if I learn something wrong subtly, it will stick. Like, I have a sticky memory. Once I learn something one way, it just sticks like that. How they behave, even though they are stored on the class, when you access them via an instance, see, because they take in the self, and class objects usually don't take in self, I don't think. When you access them via an instance, Python automatically wraps them to behave as if they belong to the instance. This is due to Python's descriptor protocol. For example, object equals my class, so it's an instance. Object my method bound method passes self automatically. My prop calls the getter with self. My method is a function stored on the class, but becomes a bound method when accessed via an instance. My prop is a property object stored on the class. My prop is a property object stored in the class which uses its get method to compute the result when accessed. Why not define them inside an int? You define them at the class level so they are shared by all instances, not recreated for each one. It can take self to work on the individual instance. So their methods are defined at stored on class property, instance adder, stored instance, accessed as instance or class, and a property is usually accessed through the instance. The bound or unbound method for methods. So it's a bound method when it's bound to an instance, and then calls getter setter, instance adder is regular value indict. Let me know if you want to explore metaclass descriptors. Yeah, I don't want to know about all that stuff. Anyway, moving on. Okay, so there's that clarification. Why did I ask that question specifically? It was just really so that I would speak the right lingo, honestly. I wanted to make sure I had a good understanding of it. Alright, so moving on. Oh, right. It's because we wanted to know if it should be prefixed with current game dot or game dot. And, like, we want to use current game dot because it is a game property. And those are... well, we definitely want to use current game because if we were to use game dot, then it would not refer to like the modified current game instances click card active value. Does that make sense? Yeah, so we want to do current game dot. Alright, and we already took care of, like, this is just a boolean. All we're doing is we're gonna save what the getter gets, which would be the boolean. We serialize it, save it to the database, and then when we load it in, we already added in the code for reconnect bool, and that will bypass the extra functionality and just set the internal attribute. Easy. Okay. Next is going to be the enter continue text active. So this is going to be a boolean as well, and I think that this is also this is a property as well, just like the one that we just looked at. Yeah, it's basically the same thing. Enter continue text active. Yeah, it's a property. So we're gonna find it here, and wherever that is, enter continue text active. Okay, here it is. So there's the property. This is the getter. Okay, and now we do the setter. So we're just gonna add in code, and this one is a boolean. So this one is just like the others, where all we have to do is check if it's a reconnect or not, and if it is, then we're going to bypass all the extra stuff and just set the internal. And it's simply saved, simply loaded. There doesn't need to be any conversion of the data type or whatever. So we'll just go ahead and add the if reconnect bool dot reconnect bool is equal to false. So means, why do we do double? I don't know. Means reconnect, or means not reconnect, operates as usual. And now we add, so that's if the reconnect bool is equal to false, which means we are not reconnecting, right? And all the stuff that this one does is it does SSCS, lock acquire, core func, data transfer, internal, core func call, release lock. So we're just going to add in code here that says else. And then this is basically saying elif reconnect bool dot reconnect bool is equal to true. Means reconnect avoids extra functionality and data transfer. So then we just would say self dot under enter continue text active is equal to val. It's the same as that line right there. That's what we wanted to do. So if reconnect bool is equal to false, if we're not reconnecting, we operate as normal. But if it is equal to true, aka the else, then we are reconnecting. We want to avoid extra functionality and data transfer, so we just set the self under enter continue text active equal to val. And that's going to get the discount double check as well as this comment. Okay, cool. Now we can move on to the next one, which is going to be what? Let's see. We have yep, that's it. We go back over here. Control Shift F, get rid of that. And we just did enter continue text active. So this one is going to be current game dot. It's the same. See, these are actually pretty easy, right? Like, this is going pretty quickly now. Alright, so now we're at game state. Game state is going to be a property. Man, this is a banger little playlist they got going on today. Chip Wave, yeah, this is pretty good. Kal-El. Isn't that like Superman's name or some shit? Kal-El, isn't that what they called him? Something like that. Alright, so now we have game state. Game state is going to be... Man, that's a really good one right there, bro. So I got one like, bro. Go ahead and like this dude. Shit. Clients, no. We're looking for a game. Yeah, there we go. Alright, game state is gonna be a property. There it is. Alright. Now we have game state setter. So this would need to have the prefix, and I already know what to do here, is equal to false, and we're just gonna, you know what we're gonna do? Watch this. We're gonna do some little magic real quick. We're gonna go here, and I'm gonna copy this that I already wrote. Now I'm gonna redo, and I'm gonna paste it in, and then I'm gonna go back up here. Actually, I don't need to do all that. We're just indent this. Alright. So we have reconnect bool is equal to false, SS, lock, core func, def, data transfer, internal, mirror, game state, extra functionality, core func call, release lock. Then we go over here and we say else, which is, whoops. And this is basically saying elif reconnect bool is equal to true try. This is means reconnect avoids extra functionality and data transfer. And then we go here and say, in this case, all we want to do is set the internal game state val. We don't want to update the game state list because all that does is cause the data transfer, I think. Derivatively sets the game state calculated property, which means we do not need to worry about data transfer logic. Yeah, like we don't need to do that, right? Do we? Let me think about this for a second. I want to make sure we're doing this right, like, because maybe sometimes we might want to actually execute this extra function. As long as it's not duplicating something that's like already happened, you know, which is bad. We don't want to do that. We want to, we only want good code. So, well, we definitely don't want to do data transfer for sure. But what about this self ID locate mirror game state list? Changes from class header to instant leaving class. Why do we do this though? I know that we use the mirror game state list. But why do we... We might actually want this to happen, guys. Let me rewind real quick and make sure I didn't fuck up the other ones. I don't think I did. So this one does data transfer and then it sets the enter continue text object equal to val. So we might actually want this to happen, you know? Intercontinue text active setter. It derivatively sets the derivatively sets the enter continue text object. Oh man, you know what I just realized? I just realized, like, well, okay, no, that's not true. So,
Jimmy, listen.
I think I actually got this.
The drugs. I know about all of it.
Oh
Okay?
shit, she knows
I
about the
just need
dope.
one promise from you.
Oh
Alright?
fuck,
Just
man.
one. Promise me you'll never drink alcohol.
No alcohol
Until you're 21.
until I'm
Okay?
21. Okay, mom. Okay. Yes. True. Fair enough. So we're worried about the. Did I fuck up? Let's see. So it might just be a little bit more complicated than this, guys. Let's rewind. We're gonna Control Z. We're gonna undo real quick. It's okay. We're probably just gonna redo everything, but I just want to make sure we didn't fuck anything up here. So choose multiple cards. Currently, let's see what we want to do on a reconnect. So let me walk through this real quick. Ultimately, it works like this. If we have fully run the data, fully run like a full iteration of the main while loop, it will have already executed all this code, right? Because it only saves the data once per while loop, which means this setter gets called in the context of a single while loop iteration. You can't hit the next while loop iteration until, aka you can't hit the next save point until you've finished setting this. So like it's either done or it's not done. There is no in between in terms of saving and loading. So let's say we hit a save point at the beginning of the while loop. We receive some data. We receive choose multiple cards. We set it, which calls this setter, and then it will run all this code. But at the time of the saving of that first iteration, like at that save point, the initial one, that doesn't include this choose multiple cards being set to whatever it's about to be set to. That happens during the next while loop iteration. The save point happens first, then all the data point modifications happen, which would include this right here, and then after that we get to we would get to the next while loop iteration, and at that point it would save the value. So let's say it was false, but then it received true. Now it calls the setter, sets it to true, runs all this extra shit. It would only save it to true in the case that it had already run through this entire setter, which means all this stuff had already had to have happened. So I just need to remind myself of that. So yeah, I think like so, well, it's not completely that simple, is it? Because just because it already ran doesn't mean that it doesn't need to run again. So because the game has restarted, values will have reset back to none. So if those values are derivative and will otherwise be set to like none or some shit where they shouldn't be set to none, then like they should be set to whatever they were derivatively set to, but they're not set to that anymore because that data got lost during the disconnect. But there's another set of like data that would get executed through the setter that is derivative of the setter, but is like doesn't need to be redone. Does that make sense? Like for instance, in this one we have like we don't want to do data transfer for sure, so that's out of the question. We do want the internal to set on a reconnect, but what about this extra stuff? The click card list clear. Well, for this one, the click card list clear. I don't think we would want to rerun that. Because, like, there's an order to how things happen. We could have set choose multiple cards to a certain value, and then through setting it to a certain value, that caused the click card list to get cleared. But then, let's say subsequently in the same while loop iteration, we end up applying data to the click card list. So then in that case, the click card list would not be clear anymore. It would be populated, and like that would be the state we would want to load it back as. So this is raising a very important question, and the important question is, how do we want to handle this? Because this is actually really important, critical. What we can do is like what I'm doing right now, this option, which would be to just go line by line through each setter, determining which stuff needs to be redone on reconnect and which doesn't, and adding that to the else reconnect is equal to true section. Or the second option would be like to just make sure that we save all of the data that is handled inside of these setters at the save checkpoint. So like making sure we always saved click cards list. Making sure that we always saved the highlight click card list bool. Making sure that we saved click card active. So basically, like, we wouldn't have to worry about picking and choosing special operation in the context of the setter. We would just let the while loop save point checkpoint handle that, make those determinations basically for us. So it is a bit of a so I would say it depends on how many properties we're dealing with, and it also depends like if we're only dealing with like 5 or 10 properties like this and the complexity is relatively low, I think it would be easier to just like add in the special functionality for a reconnect. I mean, there wouldn't be anything wrong with, per se, saving the saving these values. Like, we could just do that instead of having special reconnect logic. Okay, so this is a little bit difficult. I gotta make the decision. What are we gonna do? Are we gonna go through and make sure everything is added to the save list? Or are we going to add in individualized reconnect logic to each setter? Let me just make sure that the save option lit to the save list would actually be simpler. It would just be very simple and straightforward. The other option is a little bit more complicated. It requires determination of like what would need to be re-executed, as opposed to, instead of re-executing it on a reconnect, it would just be automatically loaded in by the very nature that it was saved, and we would only save it if we knew that it was required. You know what I mean? So like, I know that when we added objects to the save list, we did it in the context of we did it in the context of like whenever we came across properties like this, we actually assumed that the setter would run, right? We did. So our thinking was, I guess I'll just say, naive. It wasn't fully like anticipating, you know, it just wasn't correct all the way. So I think it might just be easier to go ahead and go through the setters, figure out what data needs to be saved, and then add that data to the save list so that it also gets saved every while loop iteration. And then it would just get loaded in like everything else. And in the setter, we would have that very simple, straightforward, if reconnect is false, operate as normal, else don't do anything extra, just set the internal, because of the fact that the save system, the database already has all this shit that it would re-execute already executed by the nature that it was saved. Does that make sense? It's a little complicated, but I don't really expect anybody to understand this except my own self. So change to the secret SS, secret SS, blah blah blah. What do we do? So let's just go ahead and look at this one. I think we're gonna go with that option. It's just simpler. It doesn't really matter if we like don't. My question is though, what if saving it and loading it causes a bug? But I'm just thinking, how could that be the case? How could restoring the data point to whatever it was cause a bug? Like, the only thing that I could think of that would cause a bug like that would be if it was a property. And that's literally what we're dealing with. We're dealing with how to handle properties. So, I think there wouldn't be any problem with just adding them directly to the save list. So I think that's what we're gonna do. We're just gonna add them directly to the save list. Let me just go through though line by line, because coding is complicated. It's like doing surgery on a human being, and if you just like make one mistake, you know, you can basically like kill them or disable them until you fix it. So we obviously don't want to do that. Or like cause some issue that's really hard to diagnose and might take me like fucking 20 hours of work because I mess up on one line of code. So that's why going slow and doing it the right way the first time is just better than going fast and you know, yeah. So let's go through line by line here. So in the setter, not worried about that. That's lock acquisition, core func. This is data transfer. We're not worried about that. Yeah, because this is data. If it's being saved, that means the setter's already been run. It's already been run. So we're just trying to restore it to the state without leaving blank spots in data that needs to be filled in. We don't want to duplicate any operations that don't need to be duplicated though. So we have if, else, change vertex is equal to false, data transfer func, we don't want that to happen. Internal, we do want that to happen. So like we don't need to save this, right? Because that strictly pertains to data transfer. And if we're reconnecting, that means it's already been transferred. We don't have to worry about it. Then internal, that's gonna happen in the case of if reconnect. So we will include that. Now, this is where it gets complicated here. So stuff like this. If val is equal to true, we would clear the clicked cards list. And this might be something that we wanted to duplicate. Like, this might need to be done on a reconnect. My instinct tells me it wouldn't. This is something that I would only want to happen on the initial. And by nature of the clicked cards list being saved independently, it will, like, you know, could be populated. So we don't want it to get cleared again. So we just need to make sure we don't run this line in the reconnect block, and that we are independently saving and loading click cards list. So we're just gonna have to go over here and make sure that we are indeed saving clicked cards list. So let's see if we see it here. Clicked cards list, there it is, bam. Okay, so we are, that one's taken care of. Alright, now we have self highlight click cards list bool. That gets set to true. Now I remember we talked about this one, because this one gets saved, or we were debating on whether or not to save this one. Highlight click cards list bool. So let's go over here. Okay, so we actually did decide to save the highlight click cards list bool, which means we don't have to worry about rerunning this line, because once this gets set to true, the next while loop iteration, this snapshot of this state will be saved, bam, along with the state of choose multiple cards. So completely safe so far. Now we have if self click card active is equal to true. Well, in that case, what the fuck will we do? Well, click card active is definitely saved. It's saved. Check that shit though. Let's see. Wait, I'm looking at the wrong list, dude. This ain't the right list. No, it is. What are we looking for? Click card active. Click card active. And this is only in the context of change from dir check being true, which let me think about this for a second. So if change from dir check bool is equal to true, that means that we that means that we are changing it from a dir check, which means we're changing it through a receive from a network transfer, which means that we if that was the case, this already would have happened, like, because the save happens at the next iteration. So like all this has already happened and been saved. So we don't need to worry about that. Like, but we do need to, like, that would require us to make sure this gets saved, right? I think so. So click card active surely gets saved. Isn't that one of the ones we just... Yeah, it's right here. Click card active. That's literally one of the ones we're dealing with. That might be the... It's not the one we're on. We're on choose multiple cards. This is right here. So that's the first property. We need to go to click card active as well. So let's go back over here. So that one does get saved. So like we're safe on that. Because this data would have been saved along with everything else. Same thing for the else. So in this case, we're safe, I think. Like, we can just add in the over the umbrella if else for reconnect, just like we had it before we like undid this change. And then it does the lock release, which is not pertaining to us because we're working CS anyway, which is client side. So we can redo this. So let's redo these changes. Blah blah blah. And then we have we have the reconnectable is equal to false here. Then we indent, and then we have else, which is going to either reconnectable is equal to true. It's only going to set the internal. So yeah, that's good actually. We're good on that. Let me put our double stamp of approval. Our double stamp of approval. Okay, cool. Moving on to the next one. And the next one we're looking at enter continue text active. So we just did, we went out of order, so I gotta highlight them. We just did choose multiple cards, and now we're at enter continue text active. So choose multiple cards, we'll put a little star there, and then now we're looking at enter continue text active. See, so we skipped one. That's why that's why we have to go back and revisit click card active. So I'm putting a star here to let us know we didn't take care of click card active. So let's just do this one because this is the order of our undo redo. So I would rather just redo my redos instead of redoing them manually. So let's just go line by line. It's got to be done anyway. So SS lock, not worried. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. Now this I'm worried about right here. Enter continue text object equals val. This below property is derivative of this property setter. The only place it is set is through the setter, which means it does not need to be transferred over the network. Okay. It says the below property is derivative. The only place it is set is through this setter, which means it does not need to be transferred over the network. Which means on a reconnect without saving it or re-executing it through derivatively through this setter, which would be avoided through the if reconnect else block, that would make it to where this object would be set errantly to none, which would probably cause a bug. So what we need to do is we either need to add it to the save list, which that was the option that we said we were going to go with, or we would need to just include this to be executed in the else reconnect is equal to true block. So let's just make sure that if we did save it through the save list, that wouldn't cause any problems. So let's just mentally run through this. So it would start off as none. Once we changed it, the only time it would get changed due to this comment informed to us through this comment, it would have been through this setter right here. So once this gets changed, it is going to check this value at the end of the while loop iteration, at the start of the next while loop iteration rather, and it's just gonna save whatever it's equal to. Now, is that a little bit wasteful? Well, yes, technically it is wasteful. So you might say, well, why wouldn't we just add it to the else block? Because then that would not be wasteful. And it's only one extra line. I think, personally, although it is categorically more tidy to just add it to the save list, I tend to operate more individualistically. Like, if it makes sense in the grand like, it's just like I weigh the scales, you know, and whatever seems better, even if it's against a convention, I will usually go with the better option. And in this case, I don't really like being wasteful. And since it's just one line, it's an obscure object. This is the only place that it is ever set at all. I think we're safe in just adding it to the else block here for reconnect true, right? So let's just do that. So we'll redo, and it's gonna avoid everything else on reconnect, but so this is where we're gonna cut off our undo redo trail. We're gonna double stamp approve, and now we hopped over to game state, but we're not gonna do game state in the redo trail. We're going to stop the redo right here. Now we're going to grab this line right here, which doesn't need to be executed, and then we're going to paste it immediately below, and we're just going to add a little comment which says this also must be executed for it to be set, since we aren't adding this to the save object list. What is it called? The master save object list? Isn't that what it's called? I want to make sure I got the name right. And let's check to see if it is in the list. That's the enter continue text object. So enter continue. Yeah, we don't have that in the list at all. Enter continue text object. Okay. Is equal to val. If we're since we aren't adding this to the. Okay. Cool. There we go. Done. Alright, so now we need to go to. So we just did enter continue text active. Now we can go to game state real quick and then click card active. Actually, since we broke our redo block, we'll just go to click card active. So let me just search for @click card active setter. There we go. All right, and okay, right. So this one we already had done from yesterday, so it's already done, and we don't have to redo it through the redoing, which we broke anyway. But so let's go line by line through this one to see if there's anything that needs to be included in the save list or something we just want to add into the else reconnect block. So we have lock, data change from dirt check. I don't think like that. Change from dirt check bool. That doesn't need to be saved, right? If type val is equal to 2, we'll change from dirt check bool is equal to true. Why do we even do that? Why do we even say change from dirt check bool is equal to true? What does that modify? Change from check bool is equal to false. If type out, this means this. Therefore, will append data change. Why do we set change from dirt check bool equal to false right here? Isn't this redundant? Oh no, it's not. Okay, because we use it right here. Okay, I see. We use it here. If change from dirt check bool is equal to true, choose multiple cards. Gotcha. Okay, I see. That's why. It's got a purpose. Oh. me just like, I want to make sure I get this right here. We have click card active, self val, reconnect bool is equal to false. Change it to relist HCS equals range like acquire. Core func type val is equal to tuple. Okay, change from dirt check bool. We receive it. It's a tuple. We set it to true because it's a tuple. We then like all this already happened, and then we save. So I don't need to worry about that. I just need I keep feeling like I need to triple check that, but I'm quite certain we're safe. So this needs to be redone, obviously. Now the tough part. If val is equal to false, it clears the clickable card list. This one is saved. Choose multiple cards is saved, and so it would already be saved. So we're safe, and then it releases the lock. Yeah, so we're good. This one's done, easy, awesome, cool. All right, so what's the next one? There's one more. Which one did we just do? Click card active. Yeah, click card active. So now we need to do game state. So let's go over to game state. And we're just going to do at game state. There we go. At game state setter. And here we go. If blah, blah, blah. We have core func. If type out is equal to tuple data transfer function. Then we set internal. If ID is equal to 1. Okay, so this, I don't know if we need to do this or not. This will be the last thing we do today. If self ID is equal to 1, locate mirror game state list at index 0. Huh. If ID is equal to 1, locate mirror game state list at index 0 is equal to val. Derivatively set via the game state calculator property. This is the game state calculator property. Which means we do not need to worry about data transfer. Okay, so this is set through this setter. So if we don't save the mirror game state list, then it would not be like proper. So I don't think that we do save the mirror game state list. So this means that we probably do need to add it to the save list, or we could just run the code. And like I said, if we saved it every time, it would be wasteful because, well, it would just be saving it every single while loop iteration, and that can be costly, right? That's why, like, picking and choosing what you want to save, we're not only saving it if it's changed from what it previously was, we're literally saving it every time. And I guess we could add in logic to do that, to only save it if it's been changed, right, from what it was. I think we probably should do that. Let me add that to things to do, and this will be our final thing. We're going to say add smart logic to only save data if it has been changed from value of last save. But doesn't that mean we would have to load the saved data? Well, no, not necessarily. We wouldn't have to check it from the database. We could have like a list of data, like a dictionary, you know, with the last saved value associated with that namespace. The namespace is the key, the data as the value, and then we would associate, compare the value with the current value, and if they were different, then we would resave. That would probably be more performant because of the fact of, yeah, that would probably increase performance by a little bit. Like, that's a smarter thing to do. So we're gonna go ahead and add smart logic to only save data that has been changed from values of last save. 5/21/25. Create last saved state dict with key as object name, and value as associated value. Upon each calling of save function per while loop, check the current value of each data point against the last save state dict value, and only save if changed. I mean, duh. That's pretty smart. Seems smart, and would improve performance and reduce redundant code, which could cause bugs. Right, because the less code you run, the better. Alright, so let's go back over here to game state setter, and we said we do need to save mirror game state list, and that is not in the list of things currently to be saved. Let's see, mirror, yeah, it's not in the list at all. So what we'll do is put our star here to let us know we took care of that one, and we'll just add the if reconnect bool dot reconnect bool is equal to false. That L means not a reconnect. Run operates normally. Normals. I can't type right now. Discount double check. We're gonna put all this inside of that. Then we're gonna have else means reconnect avoids extra functionality and data transfer. Alright, and this is basically saying elif reconnect bool dot reconnect bool is equal to true, and then this would be, we'll copy this like right here, paste that in, but we also need to add this in, so we'll add that immediately below it, and it messed up the indentation, and I'll just put below section must be added since we don't save the locate.mirror game state list via the master save object list. Just gonna double check on that. Go self ID, and it messed up the indentation because that's just what it does. Yeah, because this is derivatively set, and since it's not saved, it would just be reset back to 0. So on reconnect, we would want this to be run, and let's just check the indentation level. Yep, if reconnect bool is equal to false, do that, else do this. Cool, that's really easy and straightforward. Alright, so that's where we're gonna stop for today. We'll go over here, and we can get rid of these stars here. Well, you know, I'll leave them, and then I'll just put a note here and say star indicates that we have fixed the setters for these properties to account for proper and thorough load logic related to reconnect bool dot reconnect bool extra functionality that isn't saved through list objects, or we'll just say through save list objects. Alright, now we'll put 521, 25. 5 stopped here. And this is going to be let's see, next continue going through list, ensuring we account for all the proper procedures, which kind of have become a few different procedures, and like, but I know them, they're in my head, so it's all good. I don't need to like write it out. So this is line 54 in save logic. So let's copy this line, go to 2, and then just put that we stopped at line number 54 in save logic pi, and we just modify this a little bit. We went to 722. I would say 723. That's an hour and 14 minutes, which is 1.25 hours. The title is going to be the same. It's just going to be part 3. And we basically did the same thing here. Continue going through save logic, determining final form namespace object names for object names, and also including final pass pseudocode comments for proper save logic for each data point. And we stopped that at 721. And then we're going to stage commit and blah blah blah. So this is going to be 722 to 723, and now we copy this entire thing. We make sure we're in the root project directory, which is programming projects Canasta, so we're good there. Then we're going to check the branch. We are on the correct feature branch. We're going to git add dot to stage everything, git commit -m, double quotes, paste devlog, double quotes. That successfully made our commit. 4 files changed, 132 insertions, 106 deletions, git push. That's going to push to our upstream remote GitHub repository. And now we can exit this out. We're going to go over here, open that bad boy up, go to programming projects, Canasta, copy the new one. We're going to go back out, rename this to reflect today's date, which is the 21st. Enter into it, delete that old one using the keybird instead of the clicky. We're going to enter into Canasta text devlog, control end, bam, there you go. That's today's date. We did do everything properly, which is good news. Yeah, so we're done here, and that's it for today. A solid hour and a quarter. We got a lot done. We're moving quickly. Despite I'm only doing an hour and 15 a day instead of the normal like 2 to 3 hours. That's okay because these sessions are relatively productive and like they're power hours, so I feel like they're pretty productive. You know, we're making good progress. Ideally, definitely want to get back up to 2 hours a day, but like I'm tired of saying that. It's just not really happening. It's gonna happen when it happens. Whatever. I don't want to say it anymore. But yeah, we just gotta finish going through that list. I think we figured out all the kinks going through the list. The properties are gonna hold us up a little bit, but we figured out how to handle that. We just gotta be careful dealing with those properties. Everything else is easy fucking peasy. Probably finish this list in the next 2 sessions, and yeah, then we moving on, dude. Just like I said, it would probably take a few sessions to get this done, but we're getting close. So I'll